Today's show is brought to you by Quip. Quip is oral care designed for a modern lifestyle. Developed to do the basics better. Delivered fresh every 3 months for only $5. For you, the listeners of The Real Deal with Damian Adams, Quip is offering an opportunity to save $10 off refills at tryquip.com/therealdeal. Again, that's tryquip.com/therealdeal. tryquip.com/THEREALDEAL.
Thank you for listening to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. This is real sports talk for the real sports fan, and I definitely appreciate all you real sports fans who are listening right now. If you're listening on the 3-Point Conversion station on Spreaker Radio, we appreciate you. This is where fans' opinions matter. So please let us know what you think of the show. If you do not like the show, give us your constructive criticism. Be nice, but let me be better. Teach me what I need to do to be better. I would appreciate it. If you like the show, don't be constructive. Let us have your full, on-out opinions, no constructiveness at all, and let us know how you really feel, how much you love the show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you. I appreciate you as well. Please give us that 5-star rating at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. That 5-star rating, they'll definitely be appreciated. I am very excited about today's show. I have a special guest on the phone line with me today, Anthony Cervino. This man hosts so many football shows, fantasy football shows. He probably knows Pee-wee football players, flag football players. He knows his football. I'm excited to have him on today. How you doing today, Anthony?
I'm doing good. How are you, Damian?
Doing really good, man. Excited to have you on the show. And I always like to start when I have a guest for the first time by getting to know that guest. So for the people who aren't familiar with you, who have been under a rock and don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I live in I grew up and I live in New Jersey. I have an accent, if anybody can't tell, from North New Jersey. And I've always had a passion for football. And not everybody has the God-given talent to be an athlete. So I've always had an interest in fantasy. So I've basically been playing, I would say, at least since 1998. So I would say, and I'm 33. Before the internet really took over, I was in a league with my stepdad and uncle, and they used the New York Daily News to, tally the scores. And the newsletter and the win-losses, it came by fax or very, very early email. So I've been in it for a long time.
Wow. Yeah, so in those early days of fantasy football, how did you even hear about it? How did you even get started in it before the internet?
Oh, I was young, and I just knew, I guess just from playing, Madden, I was one of those eccentric people. I didn't do any trades. I wanted to have all, the rosters, like real life. So I was always into personnel decisions and all that other kind of stuff. So I was brought along to draft, to, fantasy sports, it was called rotisserie. That's where Roto comes from. It's been around since the 80s and maybe even before that.
Oh, wow.
The actual history of fantasy sports.
Wow, that's great. So how are you doing in your fantasy leagues this year?
Good. I'm in 7 leagues, 2 of which I was eliminated from. I had both of those leagues. I had Aaron Rodgers and David Johnson, so I had a lot of injuries, a lot of bad luck in those ones, and I made the playoffs in 5. Yeah, man, and I advanced, I advanced in 3. So I'm still in it in 3 leagues.
Okay, no, that's definitely, you can't wish for more right there, especially when you have the bad injuries. Injuries hit me at the wrong time. Camaro was one of my big players. He got hurt in the Thursday night game. That really hurt me. So I got eliminated this week.
That hurt a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, that hurt me a lot. And Jimmy Graham didn't show up for me at all. 0 points. That hurt me.
Yeah. It was a bad week for fantasy tight ends. A very, very fluky week.
Yeah, and the playoffs is the worst time for that.
Evan Ingram doesn't do anything, but Rhett Ellison scores a touchdown. There was a lot of that this week. The top 2 tight ends, or top 3, Trey Burton, Jesse James, Jared Cook. You want to number 4, it's Ebron. So the top 4 tight ends realistically are waiver wire guys. You can make a case that they're all waiver wire guys. And the first notable player is Hunter Henry. He's finished as a tight end 5. And then right back to 6, you have Garrett Sellett, Adam Shaheen, 2 more waiver wire players. Then you have Travis Kelce, O.J. Howard, another waiver wire guy, and Kyle Rudolph and Rhett Ellison, another waiver wire guy. So out of the top 10, it was a lot of fluky players that had very low ownerships.
Wow, yeah, that's definitely the definition of what you would call fluky right there, because you definitely wouldn't have that happen again. Now, I've seen that you host many shows. What are the shows that you host, and how can people see those shows or listen to those shows? Excuse me.
So I'm a co-host of the Fantasy Football Face-Off. It's the on Twitter. It's @BFFFACEOFF. And that's a Gridiron Experts podcast. I'm a head writer at Gridiron Experts and a co-host of one of their shows with the Fantasy Football Realist, Mike Hoff. And that's basically my primary show right now. The Sports Talk Unfiltered Uncut is a show I do with Dan Siegel Uncut, but that's on hiatus right now. That was a personal project we took on, and we're hoping to, actually find a network to join or another podcast to join to get some listeners up.
Okay, definitely.
So they're my 2 primary shows right now, but I've done a lot of guest appearances like this, most recently on the Fantasy Network. I was with Press Fox Sports over the summer for a show, so I'm very busy. I like to keep myself busy.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, man. Keep yourself busy. You always keep your skills sharp, and you definitely seem like you're doing the right things out here. And because you keep yourself in such sharp mental condition with football, I want to recap Week 14 with you, and just go over some of these games, and just go over some questions with you. So, starting Week 14, my New Orleans Saints went down to Atlanta and lost a crazy game to Atlanta, 20-17. Atlanta's now 8-5. The Saints are 9-4. Matt Ryan went 15 for 27, 221 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, and they still managed to win that game. Devontae Freeman had 24 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown. Julio Jones did pretty well, 98 yards receiving. Drew Brees went 26 for 35, 271 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick at the absolutely wrong time. We mentioned Kamara earlier, who looked good coming out, but got a concussion during that first drive. Mark Ingram only had 12 carries for 49 yards, he would have got more of the ball more. And Michael Thomas had 10 receptions for 117 yards and a touchdown. My question to you is, do you believe in Atlanta after them winning a tough game like this? Do you see them maybe getting back to that Super Bowl appearance type form?
They're making a strong case right now for it, but the issue is I'm not a Matt Ryan guy. I don't believe in Matt Ryan. I don't think he can win a big game. Last season, he put up huge numbers, and that was an anomaly for Matt Ryan. He's never blown up like that, and I would credit that more to Kyle Shanahan's system. And Shanahan leaves, he's in San Francisco, and you bring in Sarkisian, and his numbers aren't the same, but they're picking up. But I believe more in what the Saints have right now than the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm a little biased. I'm originally from New Orleans, so I am a Saints fan. But I believe this game was kind of fluky, as in the fantasy week for tight ends. When you have Matt Ryan's not going to normally throw 3 picks, but he has games like this where he looks shaky in the pocket. And for Drew Brees to make that horrible decision at the end of the game, trying to force it to Josh Hill in the end zone, that's not going to happen too often. And I see the Saints, when they play each other again in a few weeks, definitely winning that game in New Orleans. For the next matchup, we had the Blizzard game. We had Buffalo beat the Colts 13-7. Buffalo's now 7-6. The Colts are 3-10. This game was just a running game. Frank Gore had 130 yards. LaShawn McCoy had 156 with a touchdown, a game-winning touchdown. Not much analysis from this game. Not much to talk about on it. Just a good win for Buffalo out there in the snow. Keep themselves in the playoff contention. But we'll see what happens with them going forward. Tyrod Taylor's hurt. You see if maybe they'll go with Joe Webb at quarterback. But not much there for Buffalo. I don't really believe in them going forward. And Baltimore seems to be playing better as well, so it's going to be hard for Buffalo to get in. The next matchup, though, was a really big one. Carolina beat Minnesota 31-24. Carolina's now 9-4. Minnesota's 10-3. Cam Newton didn't have the most impressive game, 13 for 25, 137 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. But he had 11 carries for 70 yards and a big rush at the end of the game to kind of close it out. You had Jonathan Stewart with a big game rushing, which doesn't happen against Minnesota. 16 carries for 103 yards, 3 touchdowns. Case Keenum kind of turned into that old Case Keenum that we saw back in the Houston days and the Ram days. He had 2 interceptions. He went 27 for 44, 280 yards. Also had 2 touchdowns as well as Minnesota tried to make a comeback in this game. Adam Thielen continued to have a big season, or the big games like he's having this season with 6 receptions, 105 yards, and 1 touchdown. Does this game make you believe in Carolina going forward?
Listen, I believe in Carolina. Again, I'm going to say I believe in them more than Atlanta.
Okay.
I've been a fan of the Carolina Panthers throughout the season. I know Cam Newton struggled early, but when he got healthier from that, he rehabbed his shoulder all off season. He wasn't really 100% early on, but he was looking like Cam Newton of 2015 when he took him to the Super Bowl. He's taking the Panthers on his back right now.
No, I definitely agree with that. He's, like I said, he doesn't have the most impressive stats, but he's somebody who you can't look at stats with Cam Newton. You have to see when he makes plays. And a game against... Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you look at Cam Newton and Russell Wilson, both of those players are carrying their teams right now. And all season long.
No, that's very true, especially Russell Wilson, man, because that offensive line, even though they added Dwayne Brown, is still struggling. He's still running for his life most of the time. And they finally got a semblance of a running game with the new running back they just added. But most of the season they haven't had that. So it's just been Russell Wilson. With Carolina, you have the defense there with Luke Kuechly, but that defense hasn't been as strong as it has been in the past. The secondary is kind of weak.
Kuechly's missed some time with the concussion.
Yes, that's a very true fact right there as well. So when you have him missing time, that defense is much worse without him. And then when he came back, he only could play, he only can cover up so much. Being, he's an excellent middle linebacker, but you still have, your cornerbacks who aren't the best. So that defense is giving up more points than usual. So you need Cam Newton to do the things he did against Minnesota. And he's having that type of year where he could be dangerous in the playoffs. For the next matchup, we had kind of a stunner. We had the Chicago Bears just straight up go behind the woodshed and spank the Bengals 33-7. Chicago's now 4-9. Cincinnati's 5-8. Mitchell Trubisky went 25 for 32, 271 yards and a touchdown. You had Jordan Howard with 23 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was unfortunately going against me in fantasy. Hurt me a lot. Had Kendall Wright with 10 receptions for 107 yards. Andy Dalton, man, 14 for 29, 141 yards, 1 touchdown. Giovanni Bernard had 62 yards rushing. And A.J. Green, 64 yards receiving. Just a rough game there, man. But I'm not going to spend too much time on that one as both teams are out of the playoff race. But Chicago may be good next year as they're starting to find their footing. For the next matchup, we had the Green Bay Packers come back against the Cleveland Browns to beat them in overtime, 27-21. Green Bay is now 7-6. The Cleveland Browns are 0-13. Brett Hundley went 35 for 46, 265 yards and 3 touchdowns. Devontae Adams had 10 receptions for 84 yards. Deshaun Kaiser had an okay day, 20 for 28, 214 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. And Isaiah Crowell, 19 carries for 121 yards. So, with the rumors of Aaron Rodgers coming back, do you believe in Green Bay making a playoff push?
There's a strong chance if Aaron Rodgers comes back, and I fully believe he will, that the Packers can run the table.
Yes,
so
definitely.
I believe that they can run the table and get into the mix. This is going to be a big, 3-week stretch, because if you really think about it, you have Aaron Rodgers coming back, which immediately puts the Green Bay Packers in the playoff race. And then, you think back, Carson Wentz is done for the year, and the Cowboys are getting Elliott back next week. I mean, he's big name, game-breaking players are all coming in and out of lineups, and that completely shifts favorites to go to the playoffs. Everything is shifting right now, and the next 3 weeks are going to be huge.
No, I definitely agree with you there, man. Like you mentioned, Ezekiel coming back, Aaron Rodgers, and in the NFC, there's so many teams. I believe there's maybe 7 or 8 playoff quality teams in the NFC, but only 6 spots. So when you have so much good competition there, it's definitely going to be a heck of a stretch run to see who gets in for those last few spots, man. I can't wait to sit down and watch it, man. The NFC is going to be tough. But let's move on to Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So let's move on to the conference that's not as tough, the AFC, as we had Tennessee lose to Arizona. Tennessee lost 12-7. Arizona's now 6-7. Tennessee's 8-5. You had Blaine Gabbert go 17 for 26, 178 yards. Kerwin Williams had 20 carries for 73 yards for the Cardinals. Marcus Mariota went 16 for 31, 159 yards and 2 interceptions. They didn't have much of a running game in this game. I'm not a Mariota fan, man. I don't believe in this guy. And they have a good record, but I believe it's mostly because of a weak schedule. Am I being too harsh on the Tennessee Titans?
I'm going to say no. I was one of those people in the offseason. I bit hard into Marcus Mariota and the Tennessee Titans and their offensive line and their ground-and-pound running game. I was heavy into them. I thought they were going to challenge for the division. In fact, I believe I picked them for the division. And Marcus Mariota, there's something wrong. I know that Mike Mularkey said he played hurt last week, but in my opinion, he played hurt all season. Something is not right with Marcus Mariota, and I think there's an injury. I think there's something to cause this regression, but something's wrong.
Yeah, there has to be, because not only physically, but mentally, saying that, like, he's not reading defenses. Like, one of the interceptions he threw in the game against the Cardinals, man, he literally, the linebacker didn't have to move. Linebacker was like, okay, I guess you're just going to give me the ball. I'll take it. And got the interception. So there's something there where he's not reading the field. He's rushing passes, even though if there's no rush there. Like on that interception, he had a clean pocket all day to throw and still threw it directly to the Arizona Cardinals. And he's had these bad games like this whenever he plays against a decent team. And the Cardinals aren't even good. But they have players, they have athletes on the defensive side of the ball that make you rush sometimes. And that's what you saw in that game. Against Pittsburgh earlier this year, he threw 4 picks. Anytime he has to play against any type of team with some speed on defense, it seems like he just can't handle it. And that's the NFL is that every week, man. You gotta get over that.
Since week 9, Marcus Mariota has thrown 10 interceptions since week 9.
Wow.
He threw 10 interceptions his rookie season total and 9 last season. He's thrown 10 since week 9.
Wow, that's a crazy stat.
He's going to double. He's at 14 picks for the year. He's going to finish with 18 and double his interception total from last season.
Wow. And the crazy thing is, it's not like his counterpart, Jameis Winston, from that draft a few years ago is doing any better. Like it seems man. And
it's not getting any easier for the Tennessee Titans or Mariota. You got San Francisco, a very much improved 49ers team than what we've seen before Jimmy Garoppolo. And then they got the Rams and the Jaguars to close the year.
They can easily go over. It's not going to
surprise me if he throws 20 interceptions.
Yeah,
I can see him throwing 6 more picks in the next 3 games.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely. I wouldn't be surprised they go 0-3 down the stretch and end up 8-8 after such a fast start this year. And yeah, something's wrong there. You're right. Something's wrong there. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but I just don't believe in him as an NFL quarterback. Some part of it is staying healthy. He's never been able to.
RG3? Is this RG3 all over again?
Ooh. Wow. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that. But, yeah, RG3 had that great rookie year, injuries, and then next thing you know, he just wasn't good. And hopefully that isn't the fate for Marcus Mariota, but I can see that happening. I definitely can see that happening.
I mean, that's the best comp I can make off the top of my head of somebody to come off so big and have so much upside, and then this.
Yeah. And he hasn't had the serious injury, though. That's the scary part. Like, RG3 had, the season-ending injuries. Mariota's had, hamstrings, and, yeah, he did have the broken leg, but that was late in the year last year. He hasn't had that major injury that would change you athletically to where it hasn't changed your game. So what is it with him that we just can't put our finger on why he's just not as good?
Maybe the leg injury was, maybe he needed a full year of rest. Maybe he just wasn't healed from that. That's almost the most logical thing to think of.
True. That's true. Maybe it is. For the next matchup, we had Denver shockingly just dominate the New York Jets 23-0. Denver's now 4-9. The Jets are 5-8. Trevor Siemian, usually the interception machine, somebody who I would love to have my defense go against in fantasy, didn't throw any picks. He went 19 for 31, 200 yards, 1 touchdown. Even without a good running game, C.J. Anderson only had 48 rushing yards. Demaryius Thomas finally woke up from the dead in time to just do it from my bench. 8 receptions, 93 yards, and 1 touchdown. Josh McCown had 1 interception and 1 fumble loss before he broke his hand. But, like I said, 2 garbage teams, so we're not going to spend too much time on that one. For the next matchup, we had San Francisco, who you mentioned earlier, who was playing much better, beat Houston 26-16. They're now 3-10. Houston's 4-9. Jimmy Garoppolo went 20 for 33, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Carlos Hyde had 78 yards rushing in the touchdown. You also had Goodwin with 6 receptions for 106 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, man, this guy definitely underrated because it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He balls out. 11 receptions for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tom Savage suffered a crazy hit during the game where it was very scary. And it's crazy enough that he was going to come back in the game. Good thing he got out of there. He was only in for a little bit. Then you had TJ Yates come in and get 175 yards passing. So it seems like you really believe in Garoppolo. Is it something that you really see in him as a franchise quarterback? Still there, Anthony?
I believe in him. Let me tell you, I really believe in Garoppolo.
Yeah, I definitely believe in...
You can make the case where I believe the Patriots made a mistake by letting him go.
No, I definitely can see that because Tom Brady, even though he's playing well, he didn't play well Monday night, but he's playing well, and he's 40, and he has the whole TB12 method. He's still 40, right? And he's still a human. So anytime you have somebody at 40 years old, how can you trade not just Garoppolo, but you also traded away Jacoby Brissett? So you trade away both your quarterbacks. Yeah, you trade away both your quarterbacks that could be the future. What do you do if he suffers that injury next year or whatever year? And if he suffers some type of major injury, it's pretty much over for him at this age. So I agree with you that it could have been a big mistake trading away Garoppolo. Now I understand Garoppolo not wanting to sign back because you got Tom Brady talking about he wants to play till he's 45, and Garoppolo's like, well, it's time for me to go ahead and get my own team. But yeah, I definitely agree with you that it could be a major mistake going forward for the Patriots if Tom Brady isn't some superhuman that, if he doesn't play, if he plays till he's 45, he proves us wrong, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think the 49ers are going to be one of those teams. It cost them a second-round pick for a franchise quarterback. I mean, there's going to be a shift. I believe there's going to be a shift in the NFC West because the Seahawks, they're going to shift into an offensive dominant team because the Legion of Boom is no more. They're getting older. They're getting injured. I don't think Sherman's going to be there in the long term. I just see the defense beginning to collapse a little bit, and you see the Rams and the 49ers getting younger and better. I think they're going to be the teams to beat, and Seattle and Arizona are going to be in the back burner. There's going to be a big shift next season.
I definitely can see that happening. You make some very good points there, and San Francisco could be right there in time for that shift to be able to take over that division along with the Rams.
Even when everybody was healthy in Seattle earlier in the year, they weren't playing lights-out defense. Look what Deshaun Watson did to them in Seattle. You didn't do that to the Seahawks, especially a rookie 3 years ago.
No, that's very true. That's very true.
I mean,
so speaking of Seattle, they went to Jacksonville and lost in Jacksonville 30-24. Jacksonville's now 9-4. Seattle's 8-5. Blake Bortles, during the game, I was like, who is this guy in the Blake Bortles jersey? It can't be Blake. Who is this imposter out here playing this beautiful quarterback play? He went 18 for 27, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, Leonard Fournette getting back to what he was doing earlier in the year, 24 carries, 101 yards. And the wide receivers, man, you had Cole with 3 receptions for 99 yards and a touchdown. D.D. Westbrook with 5 receptions for 81 yards. Russell Wilson having a great year, but did not have a great game. 17 for 31, 271 yards, 3 TDs with 3 picks. You also had Davis with 15 carries for 66 yards, which I believe is big for Seattle if they can get a running game. And I mentioned Jimmy Graham earlier with no catches. So, Jacksonville. Do you believe Blake Bortles can play at this level? Like, he wasn't a crazy good game, but if he can be above average, Jacksonville could be a legit contender. Do you see Blake Bortles being able to continue that?
Blake Bortles has been playing well. I'm going to say he's made a change. Back in Week 10 against the Chargers, when he threw the late interceptions and the defense was bailing him out, well, Blake Bortles still went ahead and won that game. Blake Bortles has confidence. The Jaguars are winning. And I said a few weeks back on Fantasy Football Face-Off, I believe the Jaguars are going to go to the Super Bowl. And that's how much I believe. It's more so in the defense and the running game. But now, like, you have these wide receivers balling out. D.D. Westbrook, he's going to emerge into their top wide receiver. Marquise Lee is going to play well as their possession guy. And you have Keelan Cole, who's emerged over Alan Hearns, so I'm not even sure. He hasn't been active in a few weeks. They have capable running backs. Leonard Fournette, Ivory, and Yeldon, they all played well this season. This Jaguars team, this is the real deal. They're built to go to New England and win in New England.
Yeah, that's...
And why I say that, why they're built to do that, remember, who has the Patriots' number is Tom Coughlin. Tom Coughlin's in the front office.
That's a very good point. If there's one man...
And I will maintain, I believe the Jaguars will make the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. I like that.
I don't know if anybody else is that. I really, truly believe that. That defense is that good. It reminds me of the old Ray Lewis defense. You know, Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl in the year 2000. It was Ray Lewis and the Ravens defense. And a game manager quarterback with a running game. This is the Jaguars.
Nah, that's some very good points, man. I like the bold prediction there of Jacksonville going to the Super Bowl. And they are built to beat a team like New England. New England's had trouble containing the run. We saw that Monday night with Kenyon Drake going crazy in Miami. So if you imagine Drake doing that, imagine Leonard Fournette in a game where even if they're playing in New England, which isn't guaranteed yet, it's not guaranteed that New England's going to get that bye week and get that home game. That hasn't been guaranteed yet, and they have the Steelers coming up, which is a tough matchup. If they're playing in New England, they're built to go down there and win with that defense and that running game. And like I said, if Blake Bortles is playing like this, not turning the ball over, confidently throwing passes, he threw some nice dimes in this game. If he's playing like this, man, I can see your prediction coming true. I like that bold prediction right there.
You remember, Blake Bortles is a capable. Remember what he did in 2015? He threw for 35 touchdowns and 18 interceptions, 4,400 yards. He was a Pro Bowl quarterback. So we know Blake Bortles can get it done.
That's true. That's true. His reputation is worse than what he actually is. But now we're starting to see that Blake Bortles with confidence. And it could be scary, man. It could be a very scary team in the playoffs. Now, moving on to a team that may not make the playoffs, the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 7-6 after beating Oakland 26-15. Oakland's now 6-7. Had Alex Smith go 20 for 34, 268 yards, 1 interception. Kareem Hunt, where's this guy been at? Finally emerged, 25 carries, 115 yards, and a touchdown. You had Derek Carr went 24 for 41, 211 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Do you think Kansas City has finally fixed the issues that caused them to have all those losses in the middle of the season?
I'm not sure if they're fixed, but benching or not benching, suspending Marcus Peters for his conduct could have lit a little bit of fire in the locker room because nobody's job is safe. You're all playing poorly, so why is your job safe? We brought in Darrelle Revis off the street. Andy Reid's a very smart coach. In my opinion, he's the second best coach in the NFL behind Bill Belichick. He keeps his teams, he can take any team to the NFC Championship game, it seems like. It's going to be them or the Chargers. The Chargers are hot right now, but I think at this time of year, I trust Andy Reid more. And that's the difference, is Andy Reid. He could out-coach.
No, I definitely agree with you.
Teams right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there about Andy Reid because with Reid, you got to remember he has weapons in Kansas City. He has Hill, Kelsey, Hunt. He has real weapons there. In his Philadelphia days, pre-Terrell Owens, he had Westbrook and the Ty Pinkstons and Freddie Mitchells of the world still having a really good offense. So when you think about the fact that he was able to do what he did in Philadelphia with the lack of weapons there, you think that they'll be able to fix whatever issue they have offensively in Kansas City. Now, defensively, that's a different problem. Defensively, they haven't been good this year. Oakland's not a good barometer to say that you fixed your defensive issues. This week against the Chargers on Saturday night will definitely be a good barometer for that. But Kansas City, still hanging in there, but I'm with you. I'm not sure if they fixed the issues, but I do believe in Andy Reid. Now let's move on to another 7-6 team, your Dallas Cowboys. As they destroyed the Giants 30-10, they're now 7-6, as I said. The Giants are 2-11. Dak Prescott went 20 for 30, 332 yards, 3 TDs. Rod Smith, 5 receptions for 113 yards and 1 TD. And no, I'm not talking about the old Rod Smith from Denver. This is a running back right here, Rod Smith. You had Alfred Morris, 19 carries for 62 yards. Eli Manning, he was back. Oh my God, he was back starting the lineup, and he threw 2 picks. That's what he does. I understand why it was such a big deal that he got benched. But moving on to your Dallas Cowboys, you got Ezekiel coming back in 2 weeks, I believe. So do you think they'll be able to hold on and maybe get that playoff spot?
Well, Elliott's coming back next week, week 16, Seattle Seahawks. They play the Oakland Raiders this week, Sunday night, in a winnable game. And basically, if you win, you win out. They're very much like the Packers and Rodgers. You have to win out to have the shot to get in. And I believe Dallas can do it because you have a winnable game in Oakland. You get Elliott back against Seattle, and then you have the Eagles without Wentz. I believe the Cowboys are on a beeline to the postseason as long as they get the job done on Sunday night. Say what you will, when the Cowboys, they played poorly for the first 3 games without Elliott. But it wasn't Elliott's absence. If you go back and look at these games, Alfred Morris has played well. Rodgers has played well. It was the offensive line. There's no depth. You had Tyron Smith injured. You had, I believe, Zach Martin was also injured. So 2 key members of your Pro Bowl offensive line were out. You had Sean Lee out on the defensive side. He is the captain of the defense. The defense is a top 10 defense when Lee's in, and they're a bottom 10 defense when he's out. And it's proven. You just go look that up. And then you had the kicker issues. When everybody started getting healthy, Dallas started to win. And I just want to cover something on Dak Prescott. Just like I just said on Blake Bortles, Dak Prescott never dealt with adversity until this season. And he played poorly. And then he started getting his confidence back, and all of a sudden he looks like Super Dak again. So I think the Cowboys are going to be fine, and I think they're a playoff team.
I do think they're a playoff quality team. Now, will they be in the playoffs? It's going to be tough, man, because you got to overcome Atlanta, Seattle, Green Bay. It's so much competition right there, man. But I do believe they could finish 10-6. I do believe they can do that. But 10 wins this year in the NFC may find you on the outside looking in. Crazy this year, man.
No, they're going to need help.
Yeah, definitely. And not to bring up old wounds, but what were your thoughts initially of Zeke getting suspended?
I covered this very intimately, and because he was found not guilty, or not even found, he wasn't charged, or whatever the case was, by the police. I don't believe the NFL should be allowed to suspend him. That's my personal opinion on it, but that's between the NFLPA and the NFL. I don't think. I think it has to go hand in hand. Unfortunately, that's not how it's done. I think it went on too long. Knowing that you're probably going to lose, I probably would have gave up 2 weeks ago. Two weeks before they did. This way, you would have had Elliott back for the final stretch instead of the final 2 games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely right there with you. And my thought process has been, if they're not charged and somehow get off, like with Greg Hardy, he was found guilty and got off on a technicality on the appeal. So I understand the suspension in the Greg Hardy case, because in that case it seemed like you had a lot of evidence pointing to he did this horrible thing to this poor woman. There
was more evidence against her than him.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was more evidence that she was trying to blackmail. And don't get me wrong, a guy like Ray Rice, any kind of domestics, like you just said, I'm not condoning it, and I don't want somebody to take a little 10-second clip of what I'm saying here and saying he's condoning. I'm not. But I needed a little bit more proof.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like I said,
to buy into it.
Definitely not condoning it. If he did do it, he deserves more than a suspension. But we don't have any evidence that he did do it. And like you said, we have more evidence of her having a vendetta against him and wanting to make him pay for something. We don't know what. Then we have of him doing something violent. And that's not okay. It's not okay to punish people for accusations, because that's a very slippery slope.
No, it's not.
Now, for the next matchup, we had Pittsburgh barely beat Baltimore 39-38 in a crazy game. They're now 11-2. Baltimore 7-6. Ben Roethlisberger, man, if you had him starting in fantasy, you did okay. 44 of 66, 506 yards, 2 touchdowns. Brown, man, 11 receptions, 213 yards. Joe Flacco did okay. He went 20 for 35, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. You also had Alex Collins with 18 carries, 120 yards. I've been hard on Baltimore this year. I didn't believe in them at all. And even in this losing effort, I think they kind of changed my mind a bit. Because I thought there was only 5 quality playoff teams in the AFC. And I still think it's 5, but I think Tennessee's a team that I don't believe in as a playoff quality team. And Baltimore may be a playoff quality team. Have they been able to convince you that they are a good playoff team this year?
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a second.
Oh, no problem. I was asking you about Baltimore. Do you believe in Baltimore as a good team this year? In this losing effort, did they kind of convince me that they were maybe better than we thought they were?
I believe the Ravens are more Jekyll and Hyde than anything else. You just don't know what team's going to show up. And I don't think they make the playoffs. The Steelers have a stranglehold in that division, and I just don't see Baltimore winning out to stay in the race. I believe that's what it's going to take.
Okay, now they do have an easy schedule coming up, but like you said, they are a Jekyll and Hyde team, so they can easily lose one of those games that they're quote-unquote supposed to win. So I definitely can see why you would say that about Baltimore. And Buffalo's right there on their nips. You got also You got the Chargers right there as well, who could win a division or get the wild card. There's a lot going on right there, so I can see how Baltimore can be a team that could be on the outside looking in. Speaking of Philly, had a fortunate slip there. Philly is now 11-2 after beating the LA Rams 43-35. The Rams are now 9-4. Carson Wentz had a really good game before the unfortunate ACL injury. Went 23 for 41, 291 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Nick Foles came in and did what he's supposed to do. He helped push the game along and put the nail on the coffin for that one. Went 6 for 10, 42 yards. You had Ajayi with 15 carries for 78 yards. Jared Goff, pretty good day, 16 for 26, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns. Todd Gurley, 96 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp, man, he really came out big, 5 receptions for 118 yards and a touchdown. Do you believe that Philly can still contend with Nick Foles at quarterback?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm actually a big believer in Foles. He got it done, I believe, in 2013 or 2014 when Chip Kelly was there. I remember he was drafted by Andy Reid, and Reid ended up leaving to the Chiefs. They brought Chip Kelly in, and Foles played very, very well under Chip Kelly. And I know it was a different system. Then Foles went on to be a backup in Kansas City with Andy Reid again and with Doug Peterson. So it's not going to be a big transition. He knows the system. That's not going to be an issue. And he's a capable quarterback if you put the talent around him. Now, he's no Carson Wentz. The Eagles aren't going to be able to make mistakes and have Nick Foles bail them out like Wentz could. That's not going to happen. But can he win a game for you? Yes, he can. So the Eagles aren't out of it. They have their ticket punched. They can realistically lose out, still be in the playoffs, and make a little bit of a run. You don't want to limp into the playoffs like that, but they're in, and anything can happen in January.
Definitely, I'm right there with you. I think Nick Foles is capable. I remember that year where they went to the playoffs. He only had 2 picks, I believe, the whole season.
Yeah.
And they went to the playoffs, and they lost a tough one against the Saints, but he played well in that game as well. And he's somebody who can, like I said, like you said, not going to make the plays that Carson Wentz made. Like, there's some crazy stat where Philadelphia is the best team on 3rd and longs because of Carson Wentz being so great and so mobile, being able to make plays that Nick Foles won't be able to. But if they can take advantage of their running game with that 3-headed monster they have between Ajayi, Blunt, and I forget the third guy's name, but they have 3 good running backs there. If they can take advantage of that running game and they still have a pretty good defense, they can make some noise in the playoffs with Nick Foles at quarterback. I definitely believe in that. Now, for the next matchup, we had the 76 Chargers win over the 5-8 Washington Redskins, 30-13. Phillip Rivers went 18 for 31, 319 yards, 2 TDs. You had Melvin Gordon with 78 yards rushing. Tyrell Williams had 4 receptions for 132 yards and a touchdown. The poor Redskins, man, just so many injuries this year. Kirk Cousins, he played, I guess, okay. 15 for 27, 151 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. So, if you had to go with one team in the AFC West, Chargers, Chiefs, who you going with?
I like the Chiefs. Like I said before, as hot as the Chargers are, I think Andy Reid will find a way to get it done.
Yeah, that's a tough choice, man. I really like the Chargers right now, and we're going to get into their game a little bit here. But I really like the Chargers right now, the way they're playing, offensively and defensively, man. And it's going to be a great game on Saturday night. For the next matchup, we had the Detroit Lions defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 24-21. Detroit, another team at 7-6 right there in the NFC playoff picture. Tend to forget about them a little bit. Matthew Stafford went 36 for 44, 381 yards, 1 TD, 2 picks. You mentioned Ebron earlier, had one of his best games of his career, 10 receptions for 94 yards. Jameis Winston, 26 for 38, 285 yards, 2 TDs, and 2 picks. Again, I mentioned him earlier, somebody else from that draft who's just not playing well. Detroit, do you believe in Detroit at all?
Absolutely not, and I want to because I love Matt Stafford. I believe he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. It's the defense, and you've seen what the Lions can do. I remember a few years back, what was it, 2015, the year that Des Bryant against the Packers, he caught the ball, but then he didn't. That season, the Cowboys had to beat the Lions to advance.
Yeah.
And I remember that defense, they had Sue and Haloti Ngata. That defense wasn't the greatest, but it was very, very good. And that's something the Lions lack right now. Their run defense, their front seven is atrocious.
Very true.
And plus, on the offensive side, the running game is terrible. Matt Stafford doesn't have any help. I mean, how many more years are you going to really think Amir Abdullah is going to get it done? They finally, he was a healthy scratch. He was active for good reason. They need to move on from Amir Abdullah and find a running back to pair with Matt Stafford. Otherwise, they're going to be like this. They're going to be a mediocre team.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. And as much as the game has changed and gone to this air game, there's some things that aren't going to change. And you have to be able to stop the run and run the ball. Eventually, no matter how good your quarterback is, how talented he is, if you're the highest paid guy in the league, you still have to be able to run the ball and stop the run at the end of the day. And like you said, they're terrible at both of those things. And if you're terrible at both of those things, you're not going to be good. And that's just a simple fact when it comes to Detroit. For the Monday night matchup, we had Miami with the shocking upset over the Patriots, 27-20. Miami's now 6-7. You got the Patriots at 10-3. You had Jay Cutler, man, 25 for 38, 263 yards, 3 TDs. I mentioned Drake earlier, 25 carries for 114 yards in this one. Jarvis Landry had 2 touchdowns. Tom Brady threw 2 picks, and the Patriots had no running game in this one. Did this game show you anything that the Patriots should be concerned about? I think you kind of mentioned it earlier when talking about Jacksonville. But is there anything more that Patriots fans should be worried about after this game?
I'm not sure I'm too worried about the Patriots because this isn't the first time that New England went down to Miami and struggled. That's one of those places, every quarterback, every team, no matter how good they are, they have an Achilles heel. And it seems like Brady, as much as he dominates the Buffalo Bills, it seems like when he goes to Miami, weird things happen. This isn't the first time, and it's not really shocking because it's just one of those fluky games. I'm not going to say they were overlooking the Miami Dolphins because they have Pittsburgh, but I will say this game would have been different if Rob Gronkowski was in the lineup. That's what I'm concerned about. Is he going to lose his cool again and maybe cost him a playoff game?
That's a very good concern because
that was the difference last night.
Yeah, that's true. Because
Dwayne Allen couldn't catch a coat.
He could not.
There was a reason why they signed Martellus Bennett. Obviously, he's on the injured reserve list now. But the Packers waived him. They didn't sign Martellus Bennett because Dwayne Allen was productive. They signed an injured Martellus Bennett because they wanted a tight end too.
Very true. Very true. And with Gronk, honestly, he made me more mad when he appealed the suspension. I believe, they say that you have to pretty much appeal these suspensions just for protocol. But if I was in NFL and I gave you one game for something that you're so blatantly wrong and you appealed it, I would have gave you another game just for appealing the suspension I gave you in the first place. Like to go Stephen A. Smith style, the unmitigated gall of you to appeal a suspension after you know you're wrong. It's not like it's something that's questionable. You were just plain out wrong in this case and could have really hurt this guy really bad. Good thing he wasn't, seriously hurt by what you did. And hopefully you're right. Hopefully he doesn't lose his cool and get frustrated again. I understand he gets held all the time. But as a great receiver, a great tight end, his size, that's something that comes with the territory. Like when you're that big, it's going to come with the territory, man. That's something you just got to deal with.
Right, you have to control your frustrations. Especially he's a role model for kids out there. And I do, I expect a little bit more out of Gronk. He's going to have his Gronk cruise, and he's going to do outlandish things, but he's harmless. And this was, unacceptable.
Yeah, definitely unacceptable. And like you said, normally we think of Gronk as the harmless party frat type of guy.
Yeah, that's exactly how I describe it.
Yeah, and let's keep it that way, Gronk, because some of the things that you did in the past that other players may not have gotten away with, or other players may have been looked at twice for, because we thought of you as this fun guy, fun-loving guy, we didn't question those things. Now, if you start doing stupid stuff like this, other things that didn't get attention before will be more scrutinized. So you definitely got to make sure, if you just want to live your life and be happy, go lucky, don't do things like this. So now let's move on to week 15. Let's do a little quick fantasy game. I'll say the matchup and you tell me if you like any players or the defense for that matchup. Somebody like me who's no longer in my fantasy league, maybe I'll play DraftKings or something like that, and I can use your help on telling me where I should go in these games.
Okay.
For Thursday night, we got Denver at the Colts. I really don't like anybody in this matchup. I think the Colts might win in 20-17. But where would you go fantasy-wise if you go anywhere?
One I like is Jack Doyle. The Denver Broncos, they are just as bad as the Giants or the Browns at covering the tight end. And this could be one of those games that Doyle bounces back because nobody was catching passes last week in the Bills-Colts game in the snow. This could be a bounce-back game for Doyle in a game where he wasn't. Denver's defense playing well again. They're going to be coming after Jacoby Brissett, and I see a lot of checkdowns. So if you're in a PPR league, you want to put more or less a tight end with a good floor, Doyle's it. But that's about it. I don't trust Demaryius Thomas. I'm not touching Sanders.
Yeah, I'm definitely right there with you on that one. Like I said, Demaryius Thomas was somebody who I had on my bench forever, and then he finally had a good game. But like I said, I couldn't trust him at all, so I had him on the bench just sitting there. For the next matchup, we got two matchups on Saturday this week. I do like when the NFL does this. We got Chicago at Detroit for the first matchup on Saturday. I got Detroit winning the matchup 24-17, but I wouldn't sleep on Chicago. Where would you go fantasy-wise?
I think I would Jordan Howard.
Yeah.
He's a startable running back every week right now.
Yeah, you just got finished talking about how bad Detroit's front seven is. You got Jordan Howard, who just came off a monster game this week against Cincinnati. So what's going to stop him from having another monster game? So that's a very good pick right there. Somebody who probably costs a lot in those fantasy leagues, in those DraftKings type fantasy leagues, though.
And Chicago's defense is playing well. I do like Marvin Jones and Golden Tate in this game.
Okay, so you got a few options there for this matchup. For the next matchup on Saturday, we have the Chargers at the Chiefs. I got the Chargers winning this one 28-24. I have a feeling that you disagree with me on the decision of that one. But who do you like fantasy-wise?
Pretty much anybody on the Chargers right now. They're just one of the better offenses of football. They're hot. We talked about it before. Phillip Rivers, Hunter Henry, Keenan Allen, even Tyrell Williams. If you need a flex wide receiver, Austin Eckler, if you need a flex running back. I would roll out any Charger right now for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree with you there, man. Phillip Rivers and Keenan Allen were huge for me this year, especially the back half of the season. Keenan Allen's been killing it for me. So he's somebody who I would definitely pick up.
And then on the other side, in Kansas City, Hunt showed up. The Chargers' run defense isn't the greatest. It's actually one of their flaws, where they're outstanding against the pass. So this could be something where Hunt can keep some momentum going.
Okay. Very good advice right there. That's why we got you on the show, man. You definitely know your stuff. For the first Sunday matchup, I don't know if there's anybody fancy-wise in this one. We have the Cardinals at the Redskins. I got the Cardinals winning 17-14 in an ugly matchup that nobody should watch. Is there anything fancy-wise? Do you see any type of light in this matchup?
Cousins to bounce back. The Cardinals defense outside of Patrick Peterson, they can be beaten on the pass. I see Jamison Crowder beating the Cardinals up in the slot. That's what he does, and that's their weak point in the passing game. So I look for Kirk Cousins and Crowder to hook up to a bunch.
Okay.
On the Cardinals end, I'm not, Kerwin Williams, he's a solid option, and Larry Fitzgerald. Outside of that, I'm going to shy away.
Yes, I definitely hear you there.
Ricky Seals-Jones, he had that outstanding 2 weeks, and then he kind of disappeared of late. Redskins are terrible against the tight end. If you want a tournament buster DFS play, a cheap tight end option, I believe he's around 4,500 to 5,000 in that range on FanDuel. Throw him in, he could get a 17-point, 2-touchdown game like he did a few weeks ago.
Okay, definitely like that prediction right there, or that pick. For the next matchup, we got Miami at Buffalo. No telling how the weather will be in Buffalo. Do you like anybody fantasy-wise in this one?
McCoy and Kenyon Drake, both running backs in this game. Even if it's a blizzard again, Kenyon Drake, this kid exploded out of nowhere. There's a reason why they got rid of Ajayi, and it might be Kenyon Drake. Maybe they saw something. I don't know if I quite believe that, because why would you have this kid on the bench all season, even with Ajayi? He has potential to be better than Ajayi.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Kenyon Drake, McCoy. On the Dolphins side, listen, Cutler's playing well. These receivers are playing well. You could roll Miami's offense out and even roll with their defense, because if Peterman's out, Tyrod Taylor's out, if it's Joe Webb, I think Miami's defense can feast. It's going to be an ugly one for the Bills.
Okay, like that prediction. For the next matchup, we
the
got...
Dolphins, they're still in the playoff hunt, guys. They're still in the playoff hunt. I don't believe in them. I don't know if they're going to get there, but they're going to fight. Adam Gase is showing to be a pretty solid coach.
Very true. They are still alive in the AFC, where anything can happen for that last playoff spot. For the next matchup, we have Philadelphia, led by Nick Foles, going against the Giants. I got Philadelphia winning this one in surprisingly close fashion, because NFC East matchup, even though the Giants are horrible this year, I think it's going to be a close matchup just because of the rivalry. But who do you like fantasy-wise?
Ooh, this is tough. I don't like anybody from the Giants. Maybe Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, just because they're going to see their target. But from the Eagles, I don't know if I trust Foles. You're going to play Ertz if he's active. And if he's not active, Trey Burton. All this kid does is produce. Whenever he has the opportunity, and Zach Ertz has been hurt in the past 2 seasons, Trey Burton has been outstanding. In my opinion, he could go start for a handful of NFL teams right now. You're going to roll out Alshon Jeffrey. You're going to roll out your Eagles weapons, just because the Giants defense is that bad. Not because I believe in Foles that much, but just because if there's a game where Foles needs to get his confidence and he wants to get some momentum, he has the right opponent. It's the Giants. If he can't do it against them, he's not going to do it in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true right there. For the next matchup, we have the New York Jets going against my New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Of course, I got New Orleans winning this game pretty easily, with the Jets coming off this horrible loss against Denver and losing their starting quarterback. Fantasy-wise, who you liking this matchup?
Everyone on the Saints, and when I say everyone, all their major studs, I think they have a little bit of, they're coming off that loss. I think they're going to beat up the Jets. I like the Saints defense in this one, and I'm not sure if I'm rolling out anybody from New York.
Yeah.
Because you stack the box to beat the run, and you let Bryce Petty beat you. It's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah, it definitely is looking that way. For the next matchup, we got Cincinnati at Minnesota, which I have as another bloodbath, because I think Minnesota's going to come out angry after that loss. And Cincinnati, I think after that Pittsburgh game is done. Who do you like in this matchup fantasy-wise?
You're going to roll out Thielen and Diggs and Rudolph. You roll out your stars on Minnesota. I think they get back on track. The defense, I don't really trust Andy Dalton. He had a nice little run, and A.J. Green, he's very inconsistent. It seems like, A.J. Green and Julio Jones were both a little off this year. They weren't even Mike Evans. There was something off with these big-name wide receivers, but I don't really trust anybody on Cincy's side. Joe Mixon comes back. Start Joe Mixon just because he's going to get 15 to 20 touches.
Very true. With the wide receivers, man, I had Julio Jones. I ended up trading Julio Jones. I never thought I would do that. I traded Julio Jones, and honestly, the trade was kind of a dud for both sides because the guy I traded Julio Jones for Doug Martin, who I thought would have a good year once he came back from the suspension. So I'm like, let me get Doug Martin. And also, I got Demaryius Thomas, and both those guys ended up just sitting on my bench. And Julio Jones had that one crazy game where he had over 250 yards and a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah.
But besides that, he hasn't done much. For the next matchup, we got Houston at Jacksonville. Of course, I got Jacksonville winning this game pretty easily. But who you like fantasy-wise?
Jacksonville's defense, Bortles, D.D. Westbrook. I might actually pick Leonard Fournette just because Houston's run defense is actually their strongest point. Now, you don't really want to sit him, maybe start him with tempered expectations. I think this is one of those games where Blake Bortles goes off again.
Okay, looking forward to that. For the next matchup, we got Baltimore at Cleveland. I got Baltimore winning pretty easily because Cleveland is just bad, man. But do you like anybody fantasy-wise for Baltimore?
Oof. Alex Collins, this running back has come out of nowhere. He's becoming a household name. Outside of Alex Collins, though, you can roll out Joe Flacco as a quarterback 2 streaming option because he's been throwing the ball and he's been playing a little bit better of late, but I don't trust them. They're kind of like desperate options, Flacco. But Alex Collins, definitely, he's in the RB2 conversation.
Yes, definitely.
And obviously on the Brown side, if you want to roll out Deshaun Kaiser and Josh Gordon and Corey Coleman as like a DFS staff, just in case they beat the Ravens defense like the Steelers did, it could happen. I mean, Josh Gordon is a 5 reception for 200 yards and 3 touchdown guy. That could happen with Josh Gordon in a blink of an eye.
Yes, very talented. Happy to see him back, and hopefully he stays clean and we get a full season next year of him because he's
can you
crazy
imagine
good.
Josh Gordon with Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers, those numbers he put up?
Oh, man. You got me too excited. Don't mention him with Drew Brees. You got me way too excited. It's never going to happen. That would be crazy to see. Oh, yeah, that would be.
If he ever has a quarterback, he might set records that we've never seen. That never thought that could be set. I mean, he's that talented.
Yeah, that big, that fast, great hands. Great route runner. That's something that's underrated about him as well. Somebody who knows how to separate. So, yeah, you're right about that, man. If you ever had a good quarterback, was ever in a good place.
I would even say that. I can even say the same thing about Odell Beckham. Swap Eli Manning and Aaron Rodgers and put him with Odell Beckham. I believe he would be unstoppable, even more so.
Yeah, that's crazy because Odell Beckham, we've seen him put up crazy stats, every year he's healthy. And the fact that you're saying that it could even go higher with a great quarterback is scary to even think about. For the next matchup, we got Green Bay at Carolina. Speaking of Aaron Rodgers, I got Carolina winning 27-24, but I can go either way on this one. But fantasy-wise, who you like?
This is Aaron Rodgers. Got to put Aaron Rodgers out if he plays, and it looks like he is. You start Cam Newton. I think both of these quarterbacks should go off. This could be a high-scoring game. Even though the Carolina Panthers defense is good, Aaron Rodgers can shred them. Jordy Nelson, remember him? Aaron Rodgers, his BFF is coming back.
Yeah,
look for the reemergence of Jordy Nelson.
That's a really good pick right there.
He's been dropped in a lot of leagues. He was on waiver wires in a lot of leagues. So if he's out there, pick him up, anticipating Rodgers.
Okay, now that's a really good tip right there because, like you said, remember that guy? He's somebody who's one of the best receivers in the league when he has Aaron Rodgers. So that's a really good tip right there. For the next matchup, we have the LA Rams at Seattle. I can't wait for this game. I think it's going to be a great matchup. I got the Rams winning 28-21. Who do you like fantasy-wise?
Goff, Woods, who's going to make his return. You start early. This is going to be one of those games where the Rams are going to bounce back, much like I think the Saints will.
Definitely like you there. And for Seattle, you're not touching them?
Oh, no, obviously you're going to start Russell Wilson. Mike Davis, their running back. He is the bell cow there. He surpassed McKissick. He surpassed Lacey and Rawls. He's a 15-22 touch type of running back. And the Rams' weakness is their run defense. I can see this being more of a run-dominant game than a Russell Wilson-dominant game.
Definitely like
but
that.
You still start him. You're still starting Russell Wilson.
Yeah, definitely. If you have him, you got to start him. For the next matchup, we have Tennessee at San Francisco. I got San Francisco winning this game because, like I said, I'm not a believer in Mariota or Tennessee. I think they've benefited from a weak schedule in the AFC this year. Who you like fantasy-wise?
Excuse me, you went in and out again.
Tennessee, San Francisco. Who you like in that game fantasy-wise?
You're going to roll out Garoppolo. I like Marquise Goodwin. He's developed and emerged into a solid wide receiver, especially with the deep balls. I like Trent Taylor as a low-end flex wide receiver in PPR leagues.
Okay, definitely.
I'm not too sure I'm going to touch the 49ers running game against the Titans run defense. And I'm at the Titans end. Listen, I don't trust Mariota. I said it before. This could be one of those games where the 49ers dominate. I just see Tennessee that there's something off that team.
Okay. For the next matchup, big matchup, we got the Patriots against the Steelers. This one could go either way, man. Patriots have been dominant lately. I personally believe now it's time for Steelers to finally get a win in this matchup, 27-24. Who do you like fantasy-wise?
In both sides, you start your studs. I like Rex Burkhead on the Patriots side. He's the top running back there despite Deion Lewis's presence. He's going to hang around. He's going to get touches, but Rex Burkhead is the goal line guy. He's the go-to touchdown guy. He's also deadly in the passing game. You start Gronk, Brady, the wide receivers. The Patriots just picked up Kenny Britt today. He's not worth adding. I know people have been asking me, is Kenny Britt worth an add? I don't think so. They have Hogan and Gronk and Cooks. I think they're fine. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's going to return. The one player I don't like in this game is Martavis Bryant. He's been inconsistent all season, and when Juju's around, he is the number 2 to Antonio Brown.
Definitely right there. Good points. For the next matchup, we got the Dallas Cowboys at Oakland. I got Dallas winning 28-17. Who do you like fantasy-wise?
Yeah, Dak Prescott, Des Bryant, I think they're going to continue their connection. Alfred Morris, I believe he's still the running back to start, despite Rod Smith's big game, because if you take a look at Rod Smith's plays, they were fluky, big game-breaker plays. He wasn't garnering the touches like Morris does, and Morris is more like Ezekiel Elliott than Rod Smith is, and the Cowboys are built to feature that type of a running back. So if you want to start Smith as an upside option, if you need big points, but can also, expect if he doesn't do anything, he can have a 5-point floor and a 20-point ceiling.
Okay.
And on the open end, I don't trust their offense. Derek Carr hasn't been playing well, and where has Crabtree been? Where have these wide receivers been? Maybe you roll out Marshawn Lynch, but but I think this is going to be a Cowboys dominant game.
Yeah, I think that Aqib Talib stole his game when he stole his chain. I think that's what happened with Crabtree there. We have not seen him play good since. With the next matchup, we have Atlanta at Tampa Bay, and I'm calling an upset in this one. NFC South matchup. Tampa Bay's out of it, but they're going to play the spoiler role in this game. Got to win 28-20. Who do you like fantasy-wise?
Mohamed Sanu. Aside from all the regulars, the Julio Jones and the Freeman, I like Mohamed Sanu. He's quietly been a very productive fantasy wide receiver this season, and I think you got to roll him out. And on Tampa's end, why do they keep going to Doug Martin? Because I believe that Peyton Barber's a more dominant back. He's a better running back than Doug Martin right now. And while Martin is healthy, you got to shy away from Peyton Barber. Just because you just don't know if he's going to get 10 touches or 2 touches.
Very true, very true. Thank you so much for those fantasy tips. I'm holding you a little bit over time, but let's do sports trivia real quick. This is where I like to have a little fun with our guests, do a little sports trivia, and test your knowledge on your favorite team. So today we're doing all Dallas Cowboy Sports Trivia. Are you ready to do a little sports trivia with me?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right, for the first question, Tony Romo has 6 of the top 7 seasons for passing yards in Dallas Cowboy history. Which QB holds the other season in the top 7 for the Dallas Cowboys? Is it Drew Bledsoe, Troy Aikman, Danny White, or Roger Staubach? Let me give it to you one more time. Tony Romo has 6 of the top 7 seasons in passing yards for the Dallas Cowboys. Who holds that other season that's in the top 7 for the Dallas Cowboys? Is it Drew Bledsoe, Troy Aikman, Danny White, or Roger Staubach?
I'm going to say Danny White.
That's correct. Yes, Danny White had the 5th best season as far as passing yards go for the Dallas Cowboys. In 1983, he threw for 3,980 yards. Very good start right there. For question number 2, which running back holds the single-season record for rushing yards in Dallas Cowboy history? Is it Tony Dorsett, Emmitt Smith, Ezekiel Elliott, or DeMarco Murray? Give it to you one more time. Which running back holds the record for rushing yards in a season for the Dallas Cowboys? Is it Tony Dorsett, Emmitt Smith, Ezekiel Elliott, or DeMarco Murray?
Wow, this is tough. This is actually a really tough one. I'm going to... I think I'm going to say Dorsett.
Very good guess, but it was DeMarco Murray in 2014.
That was my second guess.
Yeah, in 2014, DeMarco Murray rushed for 1,845 yards that season. For question number 3, who holds the record for receptions in a season for the Dallas Cowboys? Is it Michael Irvin, Jason Witten, Dez Bryant, or Terrell Owens? Give it to you one more time. Who holds the record for receptions in a season for the Dallas Cowboys? Michael Irvin, Jason Witten, Dez Bryant, or Terrell Owens?
I'm going to say T.O.
Very good guess, but it's the playmaker, Michael Irvin, who had 111 receptions in 1995. It still holds the record.
Wow.
Yeah. Just over Jason Witten, who had 110 in one of his great years that he's had for the Cowboys.
I need to brush up on my Cowboy stats. All these fantasy stats are killing me.
For the last question, which quarterback has thrown the most career interceptions for the Dallas Cowboys? So I've been doing single season stuff, but this is career. Which quarterback has thrown the most career interceptions for the Dallas Cowboys? Is it Troy Aikman, Danny White, Tony Romo, or Roger Staubach?
Most career interceptions. I'm going to think Troy.
That is correct. Yes, Troy Aikman threw 141 interceptions during his time with the Cowboys, which is the most in Cowboy history. So now let me just recap the questions for you guys. First one was, Tony Romo has 6 of the top 7 seasons for passing yards in Dallas Cowboy history. Which QB holds the season that Tony Romo does not have? It is Danny White, who has the 5th best season as far as passing yards go with 3,980 yards in 1983. Question number 2. Which running back holds the record for rushing yards in a single season for the Cowboys? That's DeMarco Murray, who had 1,845 yards in 2014. Question number 3. Who holds the records for receptions in a season for the Dallas Cowboys? It's the playmaker, Michael Irvin, with 111 in 1995. And question number 4. Which quarterback has thrown the most interceptions in their career for the Dallas Cowboys? And it's Troy Aikman with 141. Went 2 for 4, man. It's not too bad.
Yeah, the one that really is mind-blowing is the Michael Irvin one, because he played in an era like where now it's pass dominant. Well, back when he played with Troy Aikman, he said he caught 111 passes. Troy Aikman has never thrown for more than I believe 3,445 yards in a single season. Yes. Can you imagine that, catching 111 passes from a quarterback who's never thrown more than 3,400 yards, 3,445. Or 23 touchdowns. In fact, he's only threw for more than 19 touchdowns once.
Yes, that's an amazing stat.
A Hall of Fame quarterback, 3 Super Bowls. That's just, the era of football.
Yeah.
That they were in.
Definitely. That's an amazing stat when you bring it up. Because you would never think, when you think Troy Aikman, you just think automatically he had to have great stats. But he played on a great team, and he made clutch plays. He did make the right throws when they were needed.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not taking anything away from him, but that's a big year.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for being a good sport during sports trivia. Now it's time for us to do Forgotten Players. Forgotten Players is where we pay homage to players who may not have been great, but maybe very good. Or maybe they were great, but just not recognized. Or maybe you just have forgotten about them and we just want to remind you of them. So who is your forgotten player today?
My forgotten player is Derek Mason. Do you remember Derek Mason? He played for the Houston Oilers, Tennessee Titans, and finished his career with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes, I do remember him.
2-time Pro Bowler. What I didn't know doing this research, he was a one-time first-team All-Pro in the year 2000. 943 receptions, 12,061 yards, 66 touchdowns. He was also returnman, over 5,000 return yards and 3 touchdowns. 26 all-time receiving yards. Derek Mason, from a fantasy perspective, hopefully this season we are going to put together an all-time fantasy team. And for somebody on my bench, every year it seemed like I would target Derek Mason when he played, because he was always solid. He was always consistent. He was like Anquan Bolden before the last few years where he fell off. That's like a good comparison for him. You think about Anquan Bolden, that's like Derek Mason back then.
No, that's a very good forgotten player. Somebody who's very underrated in NFL history. So many great wide receivers, some get lost. And he's one of those guys who kind of gets lost in the shuffle there. So a big shout out to Derek Mason, man. Great receiver. For my forgotten player, because we got you on the show, I went with a Dallas Cowboy guy. Somebody who wasn't great, but he had some good years for the Cowboys. He was kind of a guy, was part of a running back by committee. Going with Felix Jones as my forgotten player today. Felix Jones is somebody who, if you look at his yards per carry, you would think this guy should have got more touches. For his career, he averaged 4.7 yards per carry, which is crazy. That's a crazy stat to have right there. But he never was somebody who you would give the ball to all the time. The most yards he ever got during his career was 800 in 2010. But he was somebody who was very solid. He also could catch the ball at the backfield as well. During that same year where he got 800 rushing yards, he also had 450 yards receiving. And he had a decent run, only played in the league for 6 seasons, 5 with the Cowboys, 1 with Pittsburgh. Some injuries played a factor there as well. But he had a pretty decent career, 6 foot, 200-pound running back, somebody who was a decent, you like fantasy, somebody who was a decent fantasy guy, is maybe a second running back. Had a decent career, first round running back in 2008. So shout out to Felix Jones and Derek Mason as the forgotten players today. Now I gotta thank you, man, for doing the show with me today. Where can people find you and follow you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter. My handle is @TheRealNFLGuru. I'm also on Facebook. My real name is Anthony Cervino. And I also have a fan page on there. It's Anthony Cervino of Gridiron Experts.
So, you guys heard all of that.
Obviously.
Oh, go ahead.
Excuse me?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm a head writer at Gridiron Experts. It's @Gridiron Experts on Twitter, where you can find out all of my content. And I also do some work over at Fantasy Pros. And that's obviously at Fantasy Pros.
So you guys heard all the knowledge today, man. This guy knows his stuff. So make sure you go follow him. Check out his columns. Listen to his shows. Good guy right there. Appreciate you coming on the show today. Everybody listening to the show, I appreciate you as well. It's been Real Sports Talk for the Real Sports Fan. Make sure you go follow me at The Real Deal, WDA. That's The Real Deal, W as in Whiskey, D as in Delta, A as in Alpha, on Instagram and Twitter. And until next time, go real or go home.
Today's show is brought to you by Vroom. With Vroom, you can shop thousands of late model, low mileage vehicles without having to haggle on price. They just set the price real low, 8% lower than the market on average. You can shop for anything from Teslas to Toyotas, Jeeps to Jaguars, and everything in between. Vroom only sells cars with clean titles that have never been in an accident. Every Vroom car is inspected multiple times for safety, mechanical, and aesthetic issues. Plus, once you found your dream car, we'll put it on a truck and deliver it anywhere in the continental United States for absolutely free. It's easy peasy. Not to mention that Vroom offers a free vehicle return for 7 days or 250 miles. See how you can save money on your next car purchase by going online to www.shopvroom.com/therealdeal. Again, that's www.shopvroom.com/therealdeal. That's www.shopvroom.com/TheRealDeal.